The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferentz.
34,000 doorman and building staff workers in New York City planning a strike vote. Meanwhile, a federal judge dismisses a lawsuit by UPS to block heat stress monitoring by OSHA. And today on the show, the Columbus Central Ohio Building Trades, and it's our first Friday with Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Welcome to the Friday, April 3rd edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. We have 2 guests joining us on the show today. Dorsey Hager will kick things off. Dorsey is Executive Secretary-Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, and we're going to talk about another data center going up in southeastern Ohio. This is in Portsmouth, Ohio, and there's been a lot of people speaking out about the data centers, especially in rural communities. They don't want that land touched by, well, modern science, manufacturing, whatever the case may be. They want to leave it as such, and they don't like what's happening. And we're going to talk about that pushback and how it's important to get the education out on why we need these data centers. Number one, they're continuing to create jobs. In fact, Google campuses worked 6.5 million hours last year. What does that translate to? 3,250 jobs. That's just Google. There's also the perception that these are going to suck up a lot of power. Turns out that these data centers, they have their own generators. Now, electricity is going up because, well, we're using a lot of devices today. We're going to address all of this with Dorsey. We're also going to talk about the graduation recently at IBEW Local 1105, 70 graduates, largest ever. And get this, the next class will be well over 100. A lot of people joining the IBEW, especially in Central Ohio. So Dorsey's going to address all that. Then we're going to go to Fred Redmond, Fred, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. It's our first Friday with Fred. We're going to talk about the No Kings rally. He was in Pittsburgh for it. There were 9 million people just in America that attended that rally last Saturday, and rallies popped up all around the world. We'll talk about why that rally is happening. People, they want some changes, and Congress is not changing fast enough. Now, if you go to the AFL-CIO website, there's petitions there that you can petition your member of Congress to speak loud and proud about what's going on in America. AFLCIO.org is where you want to go. We'll also talk about the Save America Act, which would suppress a lot of people from voting. We'll touch on that. And Roxanne Brown. We're also going to talk about Roxanne Brown. Roxanne Brown is the new general president of the United Steelworkers. Fred was in the ceremony in Pittsburgh when she was sworn in on the 1st of March, and he's going to talk about the future of the steelworkers under Roxanne Brown. And now a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. Nearly 34,000 doormen and other building staff workers in New York City plan to vote in the next coming weeks on a strike authorization as their 4-year contract is set to expire. Now get this, a strike could disrupt approximately 3,500 buildings in New York City. The union's current contract set to expire April 21st, and the parties have yet to agree on new terms going forward. Well, in anticipation of the new agreement, the president of 32BJ, this is part of the Service Employees International Union, said, "We will not let the thriving real estate industry raise healthcare costs, jeopardize retirement security, and undermine the core fabric of a labor contract that thousands of working families depend on. For now, An advisory board representing the property owners is seeking to introduce tiered employment positions with different pay, which is a proposal the union calls insulting. President of the advisory board, Howard Rothschild, stated, "While we look forward to working with 32BJ to achieve a fair contract over the next month, we respect their right to authorize a strike, and all our members are preparing for that possibility. We are hopeful both sides will recognize and confront the realities facing the industry." Boy, that is one to watch. 3,500 buildings could be affected. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit by UPS seeking to block heat stress monitoring by OSHA, finding that the court actually lacked jurisdiction because no active dispute existed. The judge ruled the case was both moot and unripe, as he put it, as the inspection warrants at issue had already expired and OSHA never carried out any monitoring. Also, the challenge lost relevance after the Biden-era initiative behind the inspections was terminated by the current administration. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dorsey Hager on behalf of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LIUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LIUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Let's go to Central Ohio. Welcome a longtime contributor and sponsor to America's Workforce on behalf of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. That would be Mr. Dorsey Hager, who serves as Executive Secretary Treasurer. ColumbusConstruction.org is a website to go to, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, Build Central OH. And every time we check in with Dorsey, something new is popping up in Central Ohio. And along with that, a little bit of controversy. Data centers. Dorsey, welcome back to America's Workforce. I know you want to talk about the data center campus in Portsmouth, Ohio, and some groundbreaking there at the Piketon plant. And but first and foremost, you and I last month talked about the pushback on some of these data centers, and you were pretty vocal about the need for data centers in the high-tech world that we live in today. I'll let you pick it up from there, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, obviously the need for data centers here in Columbus and Central Ohio throughout the state is well documented. A lot of people, when we go to these hearings, say, I know we need these data centers, but why do we need them in Ohio? And I think that people don't understand that the infrastructure and everything that's set up here is designed very well to support these data centers, not just the roads and highways and stuff. We're within 500 miles of more than 50% of the population in the United States, but also it's because of the high fiber optic lines. A lot of the people that we produce from our 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges, the Ohio States, the Capitals, the Ohio Wesleyans, the Denisons, the Otterbeins, that can work in these data centers and work in a lot of these fields. but also it's because we have so many Fortune 500 companies here in Columbus and Central Ohio, and so much of their storage is going to what they call the cloud. And there's still people that go to these hearings that think that this stuff is actually stored like in the sky in a cloud, and it's not. It's stored in a data center. A lot of these Fortune 500 companies are moving a lot of stuff to AI as well. If you go to Wendy's, which is headquartered here in Columbus, and you order food through the drive-through, everything is automated now, and it's AI. All this computing, everything we do on our social media, everything we do is stored in AI. Myself and Pat Hook, the business manager for 683 and the president of our council, we were fortunate enough last week to take a bus tour with some members of Grove City Council, and they're looking at getting a data center campus with 3 data centers, be a huge economic boon to the city, but also a huge tax infusion. As we were talking to some of the council members, one of the ladies on there who had kids, I said, "Hey," I said, "can I see some pictures of your kids?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I love to show off my kids. Like, here's my kid playing basketball. Here's my daughter at gymnastics. Here's my son at school. Here's this." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Now let's go back to when you and I were kids. Like, we would have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of scrapbooks." I said, "That doesn't exist anymore. Everything is stored on data centers." I said, "Look at all the information you have." And I said, millions upon tens of millions of mothers, grandmothers and fathers and grandfathers in this country are storing all this stuff on their phone or on the cloud, and it's all being stored in data centers. And that's why we need this. We toured one of the Amazon data center sites in Hilliard, which had spent a lot of money on walking trails and parks and kind of built it very well to kind of blend into the city and the landscape there. And as we were walking off the bus, one of the members of Grove City Council, I said, "What's your biggest opposition to the data centers?" And she said, "It's the noise that they bring." And we were about probably 18 to 20 feet away from this large data center campus. And I said, "So tell me, what do you hear?" She's like, "I hear buzzing." And I said, "Look above your head. That's not the data center. That's the power lines." And I said, "And the power lines would be here without the data centers because they have to power all these homes and neighborhoods in which we're standing in." So I think it was really good. The mayor, Ike Stage, was on the tour with us too, with city council, had a lot of great questions, a lot of input. Obviously, I've known him for a long time from serving on Franklin County Convention Center Authority with him. But I think we have to do more in that. We have to get out in the areas, get out in the neighborhoods and talk to these folks. One last bit about the tour that I'll leave you with that I thought was kind of funny, and we kind of joke about it at the council, is we've been building these data centers in Central Ohio for 12 years. And about 6 months ago, it seems like there was an uprising on them. And it's weird how we've been building them for 12 years. And now all of a sudden there's this huge, outcry. Some of it might be because utility bills are being increased, water and stuff. But a lot of the utility bill increases and a lot of the water increases in Columbus and Central Ohio are due to the growing population. There's more water plants being built, water treatment plants being built. There's more transmission stations coming in, more power lines coming in to handle the load of the people. But the other thing that was ironic is when we were driving down 270 on the west side, going from Hilliard back to Grove City, we turned to the right, and there across from the old Westland Mall was an IBM data center that was built almost 40 years ago. So data centers have been in Columbus and Central Ohio for 40 to 45 years, and it's a huge economic driver for us. I would say probably close to 40% of our membership is working in the tech sector on data centers. I've told you about our hours going up since I took this position 12 years ago. 12 years ago, there was about 4 million man hours being worked. Last year, we eclipsed 18 million. This year, we're on pace for over 20 million. And it's just amazing that the work that's created, the jobs that are provided, the good middle-class jobs. So, and our members live in these communities too, and they have some of the same concerns, but I think we have to take it upon ourselves to educate a lot of these community leaders and a lot of folks in the communities about these data centers and work with them, because they're not stopping. They're coming. I mean, I think just in Central Ohio alone, either active shovels in the ground or proposed is right around 185 of them. So they're definitely going to keep rolling here, whether it's Facebook and Meta or Microsoft or Google or whoever it is, they're going to continue to come.
Well, I'm looking at Google campuses here, and at Google campuses, there's 6.5 million hours.
Yeah, building trades hours just last year. Unfortunately, some of the messaging from Amazon and Google, and they're aware of this, is that, yes, we're going to build this data center, but it's only going to create 75 full-time jobs. Well, what's the definition of a job? The 3 Google campuses in Central Ohio last year, a lot of them were construction, a lot of them were maintenance and upkeep, a lot of them were changing over servers and keeping up with technology. But we worked over 6.5 million man hours on those 3 campuses. That comes out to 3,250 jobs. A lot of those folks are making 6 figures or even close to the 175,000 a year, plus great health care, pension, and annuity. And a lot of those folks are living right in those neighborhoods.
Sure.
So it's great opportunities for people. It's great opportunities for young people in those communities. I took part in a data center day at Johnstown Monroe Schools last week with Turner and some of the folks that are building the data centers out there. And a lot of our electrical contractors, mechanical contractors were there too. And it was amazing to hear how excited some of the high school folks that were coming through, realizing that these opportunities to make 6 figures in their own backyard were right there and would also be there for, quite a long time.
Dorsey, you mentioned there's a lot of construction of data centers going on in the state of Ohio, and it's been going on for quite some time, well over a decade. My question to you is, how long is this going to go on? I'm sure you've been talking to people involved and they've got some projections. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, a lot of the GC, CM, some of our prime contractors, mechanical and electrical that I'm talking to are saying that this work looks like the 10-year window is very good. I mean, there's a lot of more investment. There's a lot of campuses. Here in Marysville, where I live, we have 3 Amazon data campuses. One is broke ground. The other 2 are proposed. Also, there's another campus up here, aligned, that's being developed, that's supposed to break ground in 2029 with a completion date of 2035. So that'll be interesting as well. But yeah, it does seem like that a lot of work is still here. A lot of work still be going on, a lot of work in the tech sector with these data centers, and it seems like it's really good. And like I said, it creates great opportunities for us and our members as well.
Dorsey, I have to ask you here. You mentioned how many data centers are under construction in the state of Ohio alone right now. My question is, what do you see in the future here? I mean, what's the projection maybe 5-10 years out? Because a lot of it's happening now, and I'm wondering how long it's going to go.
Yeah, when I talk to CMs, construction managers, I talk to general contractors, I talk to some of our larger mechanical, electrical contractors, some of our site contractors and stuff. They say that it looks like that a lot of this work can continue on for the next 6 to 10 years. The backlog is really good. There's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot more development with data centers, data center campuses. We're seeing other customers and end users come in to the market as well. Good examples up here in Union County and Marysville, where I live. We've broken ground on 1 Amazon campus. There's a couple Amazon campuses, 2 other ones more to follow. There's also a new customer that's come into the area, Aligned, and they've got a campus that's going to be here in Marysville as well. And that's supposed to break ground in 2029, and the completion date's not for 2035. So that's, 9 years away. So I think the opportunities for us are still there. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people in these communities to work on these sites, work building and maintaining these projects, and giving them the ability to make really good wages, really good benefits, and have a long, lengthy career in this tech sector that's being created here in Columbus and Central Ohio.
Okay, one more question here before we take a break, and that is the power consumption. I understand these data centers consume a whole lot of power, and a lot of people in various communities are concerned, well, if it's going to consume a lot of power, that means, supply and demand, it's going to raise up the rates. Now, I do understand, I guess, some of these have their own power source. Can you explain that part for our listeners?
A lot of these data centers are paying their own way. They're paying for the electricity that they produce. A lot of the increase in electric bills has came because of the increased grid, more transmission lines, which here in Columbus and Central Ohio, that would have happened without the data centers because of the rise in population. The other market that we see really coming online now is we've broken ground on 2 gas plants that are going to be behind the meter to supply power to these data centers. There's 3 more proposed in Central Ohio. If we can get these built, get these coming out of the ground, get these up online, producing power for these data centers, I think it'll take some of the stress off the grid and some of the stress off the bills for a lot of people here in the community, because these data centers will be producing their own power. And I think that that'll be huge as well and create a lot of more work hours and opportunities for us and our members.
There you go. There you go. All right, Dorsey, I got to take a quick break. Dorsey Hager, Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. More to come from Dorsey, especially talking about the IBEW 1105 graduation, largest ever. Later in the show, we're going to check in with Fred Redmond, Secretary Treasurer of the AFL-CIO, because it's our first Friday with Fred. Back in a few minutes. You're listening to America's Workforce.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
It takes LIUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LIUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LIUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Heat and Frost Insulators Labor Management Cooperative Trust. Find out more at insulators.org/LMCT.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
American workers are sick of struggling to get by. It's time to get ahead. In the Teamsters Union, workers are winning industry-leading contracts, historically high wages, fully paid health care, and retirement benefits you can count on. Across the country, Teamsters fight alongside our brothers and sisters to secure a better life. It's what we've been doing and how we've been living for more than a century. When we fight, we win. Join us. Be a Teamster.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And don't forget, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Let's go back to Central Ohio and rejoin Dorsey Hager on behalf of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. Well, you got to be pretty excited. I know with all the work that's going on in Central Ohio, the apprenticeship programs, well, they're at full speed. Talk to me about the graduation at IBEW 1105.
Yeah, so our IBEW Local to the east, which covers Licking County and a little bit farther east out that way, but majority of their work is in Licking County with Meta, and which is Facebook, and then, Microsoft, Google. They have a Google campus, and then also Intel. There's just a ton of work there. Edge Connects, Power Connects. Their local has grown exponentially in the last few years, and they're really starting to increase their apprenticeship. I've been attending their last few graduations, the one I attended here recently. They graduated over 60 Journey people, over 70 Journey people, which was their largest class ever, and it'll be their last non-triple digit class. Classes coming afterwards will graduate over 100 people. So the opportunities create the demand for more and more folks. They're training more and more apprentices. They're turning out more and more apprentices. They just purchased a huge old Sears store. I think it's right around 88,000 square feet. They're in the middle of renovating that to add them additional space for not only classroom, but also hands-on learning as well. They're adding more and more teachers every day. So just proud of Bill Hamilton and Nick Hamilton, the folks out there, and everything they're doing to really grow their local and meet the demand for all the work and all the opportunities that's in their area. Those guys are doing a tremendous job.
So they currently have 900 apprentices at 1105. That's amazing. Just amazing. Now, Dorsey, with everything that's going on, I know it's across the board with all the skilled trades with the apprenticeship programs, but I have a feeling I have a feeling that the IBEW, especially with all these data centers, seems to be leading the way. Am I correct in assuming that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 683 here in Columbus, 1105 to the east, and now 575 with the huge announcements at Piketon, with the power plants that are going to supply power for data centers, the huge data center campus that's going to be coming down there, and then the proposed Google campus in Portsmouth. We could very, very easily be looking at just between those three local unions in central and southern Ohio. I could see those three local unions in the next 5 to 10 years employing close to 25,000 electricians.
You know, you often say the skilled trades is the pathway to the middle class. Seems like the pathway to the middle class is in central Ohio right now. What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, the opportunities keep coming. We keep doing what we can to meet the challenges, organizing, recruitment, even organizing and bringing in more employers and more contractors. And, it's a good time to be here in Columbus and Central Ohio, and we're definitely trying to take advantage of it.
There you go. Dorsey Hager on behalf of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. Here's a website to go to. It's columbusconstruction.org. You can follow them on X, formerly known as Twitter, as Build Central OH. Build Central OH. You take care. Best of the Easter holiday to you and your family. We'll talk to you next month, okay, brother?
All right. Have a great Easter. Thank you so much, Flash.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's our first Friday with Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Back in a few minutes, you're listening to America's Workforce.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
Founded in 1887, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents the employees responsible for tirelessly constructing and maintaining the national rail system in America. For more than a century, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees has proven they have what it takes to protect its members and meet the ever-changing challenges of the rail industry. Today, the BMWED continues to fight for job security, fair wages, better benefits, and safer, more modern work environments. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. Blue Cross and Blue Shield companies formed out of a need to provide affordable health care to teachers, loggers, and miners. We are now celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Blues, developing the National Labor Office to strengthen its commitment to organized labor. Blue Cross Blue Shield's National Labor Office remains focused on America's workers, advocating for affordable and equitable health care, partnering with strategic alliances to provide industry-leading products and services, and proudly serving more than 18 million unionized workers, retirees, and their families. Working hard for America's working families, for the health of America. Learn more by following them at Blue Labor on LinkedIn and X, formerly known as Twitter.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferentz with America's Workforce.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Let's go to line number 2. Welcome a dear friend, longtime supporter of America's Workforce, now with the AFL-CIO for several years now. He's Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Last Saturday was No King's Day. This was the third time this was staged, and it happened all around the entire world. We're talking about 9 million people that rallied from coast to coast, and that does not count the tens of thousands who joined worldwide. We're talking London, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, Mexico City, Rome, Sydney, Australia, Toronto. Well, organized labor played a big part in those mass rallies, which drew tens of thousands to New York, D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles. San Diego had 40,000 people for No King's Day. Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. And the guy that was in Pittsburgh was Fred Redmond. Fred, welcome back to America's Workforce. Thanks for joining us. Talk to me about the rally and talk to me about the angst that's going on in America right now. There's a lot of people that are very, very happy with what's coming out of Washington. Fred, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy. Go ahead.
Well, thanks, Flax. Good to be with you. Last Saturday, the No Kings rallies was a huge response to the displeasure that the American people have over the actions and the policies of this president. In Pittsburgh, we had about 12,000 folks in front of the city county building. And, speaker after speaker talked about how unaffordable things are, gas prices, about the plight of poor people in this country getting poor while the billionaires are raking in tons of dough that's coming in from programs that this president has designed to enhance the rich at the expense of the rest of us. And, look, Saturday was a day where people really, really came out around the country, and as you stated, different countries around the world, to let this president know that his policies is not working for working people. They're not working for the poor. The billionaires have enough. It's time for him to create policies that's going to take care of all Americans, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And we're not confident that that message will get through to this president. But what we hope is the showing that we saw this past Saturday will encourage other Americans to join this fight, to return America to the working class of this country. So it was a powerful day.
Yeah, and there'll probably be more. This was the biggest one ever. The first time they did a No Kings or rally, there was about maybe 2 million people. Yeah. This one was over 9 million. Fred, a lot of people are very, very frustrated. I want to urge everybody to go to the AFL-CIO homepage. That's aflcio.org. And, there's two things I want to call attention to. Number one, the fact that we're not affordable anymore. Trump said he was going to make America affordable again. Instead, we're spending a whole lot more money for gas. You know what? My wife has an SUV, okay? And, the price of gas, it went up over $1 a gallon. So this past Saturday, it cost about $55 to fill it up. If I would have filled it up, which I did about a month ago, three weeks ago, that price would be around $35 to $40. Now, imagine multiplying that, because there's a lot of SUVs out there. Imagine multiplying that. Just that alone in 1 month is unbearable. I don't know how families can really sustain what's going on right now. So those of you listening, you got to call on Congress to fill out a form on the homepage, aflcio.org, and tell them, you know what, everything's too expensive. You got to deal with this. And now, Fred, let me ask you this. Don't you think the system right now is pretty broke? And I want to reference what happened last Friday when Mike Johnson refused to take a vote in the House to pay the TSA agents. And if he would allow that to happen, it would have passed. But he didn't allow the vote to happen. Fred, what do you think about the system right now that we're in? Because people want change, and they can't even get their representatives to do anything about it.
Well, no, look, you're exactly right. The system is broken. We have people like Mike Johnson sitting in the Congress who's there to please one person, and that's the President of the United States. He's not there to make life better for ordinary, hardworking Americans. He's there to make sure that he's doing the bidding of the president in the halls of Congress. So, look, we're in a situation as a country, okay, where we haven't been in our lifetimes, okay, where, the government is catering at the whims of billionaires and of a president that's really, really out of touch with the American people, and they're not doing their job of representing ordinary, hardworking Americans every day. So the system is broken. I mean, when you have a Speaker of the House who has the votes to do something right for the American people, right, like paying them for work that they've already and continuing to perform at the expense of, trying to satisfy this president, then we have a system that's not only broken, but the system is corrupt. The system has no integrity right now. There's no concern for the citizens of this country who work every day, pay their bills, pay their taxes, are doing everything that they can to be good citizens. And they're not hearing anything positive from the people who they elected to represent them in Washington, D.C. So, look, this system has to be changed. What we have to do is go to the polls in mass numbers in November and vote for those people who are committed to working families and to average Americans in this country.
Well, Fred, I'm glad you brought that up because you are fully aware of the SAVE Act, which would, in some estimates, eliminate about 20 million people from the voting rolls. Do you think that this Congress is going to move forward with that? I know the Senate doesn't want to do it. It did pass in the House.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts moving forward on that?
Well, I think that there's going to be some form of the SAVE Act that's going to come out of Washington, D.C. And whatever form it's in, it's not going to be good. Look, I think that what we have is the move toward a mass voter suppression bill that's going to disenfranchise millions of people throughout this country. They're talking about having to have passports in order to vote, having to have birth certificates and other things that they know disfranchises a lot of people in this country, particularly those people in low and moderate neglected neighborhoods around the country. So I think some form of it is going to pass. Whichever form it comes in, it's not going to be good for everyday working Americans. So we have to make sure that we're talking to people that in different states around the country, which will probably have different rules regarding the SAVE Act, we have to make sure that we do a mass voter education program, which the AFL-CIO is engaging in, to make sure that people know what they need to vote, and also to make sure that we're at the polls monitoring the votes.
Hopefully this will energize a lot of people if they do move forward with the SAVE Act in some shape or form. I don't know if it's going to happen in the form that it is right now, to your point. Fred, one more thing here. I know you knew Roxanne Brown very, very well when you were in the Steelworkers Union.
Absolutely.
And on March 1st, she became the first woman of color, I might add, to be president of the United Steelworkers. And I know you were there. And we had her on the show, by the way, on March 12th. We did a full show with Roxanne. I just love what she has done. And this is a woman to watch. But if you can briefly reflect on that moment, because, you know, you're the first African-American in the AFL-CIO with a leadership position as Secretary-Treasurer, Liz Schuler, the first woman, and here's Roxanne Brown. I'll tell you, things have really changed in America, and this is a good way to button up this conversation. I'm going to turn it over to you, Fred.
It was a day of great pride that I had in myself as a mentor of Roxanne Brown. I've been knowing Roxanne since she came into the union. I've worked with her over the years. But also, it was a proud day for our entire union. The United Steelworkers, people who have looked at or studied the history of the United Steelworkers, you know, we have been a union that really had to fight. You know, we're standing, people like me and Roxanne are standing on the shoulders of warriors who love their union so much that they were willing to take on the leaders of this union in order to ensure that people of color and women have full participation and full membership into the union. And the election of Roxanne Brown is a culmination of those fights that took place in the 60s and the 70s in order to ensure that all workers will have the right to join a union. And I'm so proud of Roxanne that, you know, I just can't express it in words. She's a very articulate, smart lady who's going to take the union to new heights.
I love what Liz Schuler said at that ceremony. She said at a time when people have lost faith in every other institution in this country, people believe in unions. They have faith in our message. It's up to us to show everyone, and this is what it could look like with Roxanne Brown being the president of the United Steelworkers. Good stuff, good stuff. All right, my friend, you take care. Enjoy the Easter holiday. Stay safe, and most importantly, stay healthy. Okay, brother?
Will do. Thanks a lot, Flash.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Coming up on Monday, the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful weekend.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.